Josiah, first off, what an amazing performance as Terry. A lot of people talk about great performances. It really felt that you inhabited the role. How does one, in layman's terms, how were you able to do that?
Ooh,
Bless
I'm
you.
so sorry.
No worries.
Excuse
Bless
me.
you. Yeah.
Could you repeat the last part of the question?
Yeah. How were you able to inhabit that role just in general? Because it really felt not just like a performance, it felt absolutely real.
Mm. Wow. Thank you. I I feel like my kind of guiding light or northern star to inhabiting Terry was a loyal commitment to the truth, and I think that my disciplined effort to that is kind of what led to the manifestation of what you guys saw on screen. And I feel like I've been landing on this word a lot, empathy. I feel like empathy is the thing that is just going to connect us more, bring us to a more unified state as a people in the world, around the world, all cultures alike, colors, shapes, sizes. I think empathy is what is going to allow us to connect, and I think that's what allowed me to connect with the spirit of Terry. Just understanding who he was, where he come from, not judging him, respecting him, valuing him, supporting him, seeing his worth. And I think that's truly what allowed me to holistically and truthfully and authentically exist in his skin.
Mentioned discipline. Just, I can't even imagine the discipline and focus it takes to play such a role. Can you just, I guess in layman's terms, just talk about all the steps you took? Was it just a daily grind and of course joy in exploring character and as well as the world of this story?
Um, Also been speaking about this a lot. The backdrop of the film, New York City itself, I think played a considerable part in my preparation and my discipline and, every day going to set. And at the time I was living in New York, a lot of the time I wouldn't get driven to set. I would, ask them to let me take the subway to set. You know what I'm saying? So little nuances and tools like that, kind of where I psyched myself into, staying grounded and rooted in the role, and in Terry's skin, speaking in the accent at all times of the day, kind of like not taking it off, taking the skin off. I think those things become habits, and those habits become patterns, and those patterns become, ways of behaving. And once I got settled into the behavior of who Terry was, it was kind of like, easy for me to show up and, do it on screen.
I'm lucky if I leave the house. I'm pretty much a hermit. You're not that way because you decided to several years back journey to London to hone your acting. Do you see that long journey, your journey to London, sort of as a parallel to what you're doing for this project? Meaning you're going outside your door, you're experiencing something new, you're not afraid of what's to come as far as facing those challenges. That's part of the joy, maybe, of what you do as an artist.
Yes, 1000%. I feel like the very definition of an artist for me is grounded in like love and passion. And I think that once you disassociate the label of like work, which has such a lot of times negative connotation to it, I have to study, or I have to go to rehearsal, or I would switch that thinking, and I switch the thinking all the time to I get the privilege to study. I get the privilege to rehearse. I get the privilege to do this research on this character. I get the privilege to, um, you know, be a risk taker and go to London and challenge myself with the Brits because they're better than everybody. And I think that that kind of like internal switch inside of me is what has allowed me and allows me to challenge myself. And when you challenge yourself, the only thing that there's left, the only thing left is growth for me. And I want to continue to grow, I want to continue to learn, and go beyond what I think I'm capable of.
Speaking of growth, I don't know if you attended Sundance. Just can you just talk about your feelings of if you have already seen getting the reactions from this film and just it possibly changing people's perceptions and lives. So on that's side A of my question, and then part B is how has this movie, I guess, in tangible fashion, changed your life because it's such a profound and sublime story.
To the first part of the question, I was at Sundance. We all were there. The main cast, we were all there. And again, I'm a cinephile, love cinema, all the ins and outs, bells and whistles, everything that has to do with film. And Sundance has always been that one of those floating ghosts in the canon of, the film world of like, well, if you go to Sundance, man, you're doing it, you know what I'm saying? Not only that, just the privilege of like just being grateful even to make it into Sundance is like a revered and a rare list. Then getting to win the highest prize there, then we get into surreal airspace where, okay, well, we got in, and that's the win itself. Okay, we got into Sundance, and then we won. And then that's kind of like, well, okay, 95% of like the films that won this prize go on to like win an Oscar. You know what I mean? Then that talk enters your brain. And for me, it's kind of all just rooted in just gratitude and just being grateful for the opportunity itself and getting the chance to just contribute to the space and give this story to people. And walking away from Sundance, I was just extremely filled with gratitude and humility. And tangibly today, I would say, it's still early. So tangibly, I would think the only thing that has changed is people texting me more about what they seen or what they heard. That's probably about it so far.
So obviously I'm not a professional, but I'm just curious. When you're in these scenes, you're a professional actor. How do you not break down? Is it a lot easier for you than one would think, as far as these moments with your family, your fellow actors, and they're playing your family, and these are really deep scenes. How do you do
I
that?
think it is. Yes, it's a professional, you know, craftsmanship. But at the same time, it's funny. I was having a conversation with my buddy Casey the other day, and we were talking about horror movies. And he was like, "Yo, would you ever do a horror movie?" Like, yeah, I'd do a horror movie. And I was explaining to him, I'm like, but it's not what you think it is. Like, the ghost isn't on set. There's like 50 camera guys on set and light people. So it's like, we're not scared. But when you see it, you're going to get scared. So that I would apply the same knowledge to this, where it's like, yes, this is such vulnerable and emotional subject matter, and yes, we are feeling these feelings, while it's happening on set. But at the same time, you know, there's a camera this close to my face, so just realistically, what's happening? It's like, you know, I'm not, breaking down all the time. If I break down, it may be in my trailer or when I go home, but not in the actual, thing itself.
Final question. You mentioned you could describe yourself as a cinephile. So, first off, right off the top of your head, can you name one of your all-time favorite movies, and what is it about this movie that's special for you? And on the flip side of that, can you name a movie that you feel needs a little bit more love and is underrated, and what makes that movie special? So that two-parter for you.
I love Christopher Nolan, so I'm going to say Interstellar for the first part of the answer.
Hmm.
To me, I love this film because I love Christopher Nolan's directing style. If you go all the way back, to Memento or something, there's like a through line with time, and time being this thing that is juxtaposed against your existence, and how you necessarily view time, how you value time, and what role do you play in it? What role does your family play in it? What role does you weighing what is more important, your existence or maybe your daughter's existence? When it comes to time, what will you do for that time? What won't you do for that time? And I feel like Interstellar, it's telling a story that is intangible and below the surface, as opposed to like, the big budget there in space and on a spaceship and all that kind of stuff that gets people in the seats. But like once you're there and you're, dissecting and examining what's happening, it's like there's a quote in the movie when Matthew McConaughey is they're doing the math of how long they're going to be in space, and he arrives at, okay, well, we're going to be here for 15 minutes, and then another character, like, he was like, that's 75 years. And he's like, are you willing to be away from your family for 75 years just to save the world? And everyone else is kind of like confused on what their answer should be. And Matthew McConaughey's character is like, "Now I'm willing to do it," and those type of motifs and thematic, you know, undertones are what draws me to a film and connects me to a film, and also just how Matthew McConaughey, his arc in the story, how in the beginning he didn't want to do it, he didn't want to go, and then he's like, okay, well I'll go, and then he's all happy to go, and he's all for it, and then he gets there, and he's been there for like a week, and it's been like 20 years on Earth, and he starts to realize what that time meant, versus what he was trying to achieve, and him rethinking, well, maybe should I just have stayed down there with my family and died with my family, or me trying to save the world for these people that I never would have touched or saw in life, where I could have spent the last 30 years with my actual family. But
Yeah.
it gets me very emotional. But I love Interstellar.
Josiah, thank you so much for your time. Really loved the film and looking forward to interviewing you again. Great performance.
Thank you so much.